Hey E36 Fanatics, Steven here. This is the 323i, where both windows aren't really working. As you can see here, the regulator is on the window in both locations, so that's not an issue. And obviously the motor and the regulator are attached. If you've ever worked on your window regulator before on a BMW, you know that unfortunately these things aren't bolted in normally, they are riveted in. So this one is bolted, which tells me that this window regulator has been worked on before or replaced. All right, ready? It'll go down, but when I go up, just stops there. And it's been making a grinding noise, which coming from the motor and the regulator teeth, which tells me that the bushing in between them is probably bad, because obviously the motor's working, the regulator's working somewhat. So I'm gonna try the cheap fix first and try and replace the bushing in between the motor and the regulator, which means I'm going to need to pull the whole regulator and motor off so I can replace it, because unfortunately the motor's bolted in on the other side, so you can't just pull off the motor. So I'm just going to use a screwdriver, pop this first clip out, and as you can see, the regulator pops right out from the window once you do that. And I would save these clips unless you got more. Then next up, I'm going to need to pull there we go. Both clips are out. Remember to hold your window or have something holding it, because it is no longer attached. Now sometimes, if the window hasn't been worked on a long time, it'll be so rusted on the slider right here, it'll be so rough that it'll sit just like that. The wheels won't even turn because they're rusted. So, I mean, that's a bad thing normally, but if it'll just hold up your window like that, then hey. So, now I've pulled out the regulator from the window. Now I'm ready to unattach it from the door. Now, luckily for me, see, actually I can already see an issue. This is real loose. So luckily for me, this already had bolts, so it's really easy to remove. However, on yours, it probably doesn't have bolts unless somebody's worked on it. So you'll have to drill out the rivets basically, which is a real pain. Also, if you're going to replace the rivets with bolts, or put back in the bolts if you already have them in there, make sure to use Loctite, because the reason they use rivets in the first place is the bolts tend to fall out from all the vibration. So make sure you use Loctite. Also, don't forget you got two connectors for the window motor. One, that's two. Just got all that out of the way. Let me see. Now I think I can get away with leaving this wire here without pulling anything out. So at this point, it's ready to come out. Got all these bolts out. Okay, so now I've got the whole window regulator off, and here's the motor and the regulator. Now the motor is good. Let's check out the regulator. So the problem seems to be that it's misaligned on the teeth. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the motor and take a look at it. The motor is pretty easy to pull once you got it off. It's only got 3 bolts, and it's a T30 Torx. Okay, so I've got another bushing that I'm popping on here. I'm gonna try that, and I've got some grease. I'm just gonna coat the bushing in it. Alright, so I've retightened up the regulator and the motor, put this new bushing on there, and greased it all up. Now hopefully it's gonna start working again. Seems to be working good. So I went ahead and bolted everything up, just a loose kind of fitting on it, hand tight, just to like put everything back together and test it. Here's the old one. It had cracked pretty bad, and it was just the window was a little misaligned, or the regulator was a little misaligned on the motor, and it was stopping up and making this really bad metallic sound. So as you can see, everything seems to be working just fine. Okay, so I'm getting ready to test the whole thing, but before I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and really spritz down. And it's okay if you get it on the window, you can always take it off afterwards. But just really spritz this down with silicone lubricant. So now it's ready to test. And then after this, if it tests out good, I'm gonna loosen up these bolts, or these nuts. Then I'm gonna put blue Loctite on all of them, because they have a habit of coming out over time from the vibration. So that's great. It's going most of the way up. It's just got to be reset. So that's what I'm gonna go ahead and do. And just hold down the up button. Now we're gonna hold down So now all I got to do is pull out these nuts and put some Loctite on them so they'll hold it real good. And now we've got a beautiful working window.